Thank you. So we're live now. And thank you all of you for joining us for today's evening. I would like to just request Ritik sir to turn on his video. First, we will go with some formal introduction and then he can start his talk. So I hope that other participants will join us soon because I know this today is there is a cricket match between India and Pakistan. Maybe some of them are there, but it has been recorded, so they can also take the idea of yours from the video lecture. So don't worry. And okay, let me start. I hope I am audible properly to all of you. So, good evening, everyone. A warm welcome to all. We are thrilled to commence the second public lecture of 2025 exploring the crucial topic Reverential Ecofear in Theyyam, the sacred ecology of North Malabar's ritual performance. Before we delve deeper, let me briefly introduce our organization, Cultural Studies Research Forum. The CSRF, a student led non-profit founded in 2022, believes in the power of knowledge. We organize free public lectures and discussion on a wide range of cultural topics from literature and art to music and food. Our goal is to empower students by exposing them to new research ideas and perspectives, fostering critical thinking, cultivating a deeper understanding of diverse world around them. Now, I am delighted to introduce Dr. Ritvik Shankar A, who is a research associate at the Indian Institute of Space Science and Technology, Trivandrum. He holds a PhD in humanities with a research focus on the gender, cultural, and performance dimensions of Devakut, the only female performing Theyyam in North Malabar, or you can say Northern Kerala in India. His work engages with performance studies, digital humanities, and the ethnographic documentation of marginalized ritual art forms, contributing to the preservation and understanding of this unique tradition. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Ritvik Shankar A to this CSRF talk. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are audible and the screen is also visible.
Okay, fine. So good evening all. First of all, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to the team Vallet for giving me this opportunity to present this topic as part of the CSRF lecture series. So I hope the screen is visible.
Yes, sir, it is.
So the topic of today's presentation is Reverential Ecofear in Theyyam, the sacred ecology of North Malabar's ritual performance. So I start with a brief introduction to Theyyam. It is a ritualistic performance in North Malabar, Kerala, and it is performed in the local shrines called Kavu, the sacred groves. And the performance is believed to contribute to the societal well-being and prosperity. So Theyyam usually carries ritualistic elements such as worship, penance, along with the convergence of various forms like dance, painting, music, etc. So the legendary and mythical characters in Theyyam performances are acted out by artistically skilled men of the subaltern sections of the society, including the Malayas, Pulayas, Vannans, Velans, Mavilans, Anutans, etc. So interestingly, the text Keralolpatti, the origin text of Kerala, refers the performance of Theyyam as Kettiyattam, indicating its connection to various performing castes such as Malaya, Vannan, Velan, Anyutan, and Mavilar. So the word Theyyam can be an appropriation of the term Deivam, meaning God. Moving to the next slide. So there are numerous historians have chronicled the transformation of Theyyam from a ritual to ritualistic art form. So one of the Theyyam scholar, academician Rajesh Komath observes that Theyyam cult has undergone a shift of thrust from devotion to performing art, from worship to an object of aesthetics and gratification, hence a commodity over a period of time. So Theyyam is also subjecting to a process of evolution, and now it is turned out to be a commodity. This is what Rajesh Komath observes. So in the colonial times, Theyyam was addressed by the colonial administration as devil's dance. And they found no cultural value or art in this particular ritual art form. So Srinarayana Guru, one of the social reformers in Kerala, who really worked hard to eradicate superstitions and caste-based exploitations in the society, he reinforced the colonial prejudices about Theyyam because they called it as what devil's dance. And Srinarayana Guru also reinforcing the colonial notion of Theyyam as a devil's dance. And he argues that it should be eliminated from the society. So during the time of the nationalistic movements, different art forms like Ottantullal, ritual art forms like Poorakali, Kolkali, Theyyattam in North Malabar became potent vehicles for articulating political ideologies and challenging oppressive systems. And the communist movements in Kerala treated Theyyam as an art form, and they started using Theyyam forms out of its ritualistic backgrounds. So they started using Theyyam in their processions, etc. So they attempted to provide Theyyam with an artistic identity, not a ritual identity. So the communists utilized the caste resistance reflected in Theyyam myths to bring up anti-authoritarian stance. So they are working against the caste biases, the caste exploitations in the society, the caste-based hierarchies in the society. So they utilize the caste resistance, the themes related to caste resistance in Theyyam to bring up anti-authoritarian stance. So though Theyyam performance by the subaltern communities who are part of the indigenous worldview, the indigenous worldview means the love for nature, signals the fearless resistance against the prevailing hierarchies and hegemonies in society. It also has been used by the system as an ideological means to contain the oppositions or resistance from its subjects. So the power section utilize the performance, ritual performance to contain the resistance against the system, and they try to oppose and they try to eliminate all the resistance and opposition from the part of the subaltern sections in the society. So as the academician M. Sahira stated in her article for performances, reading the cultural history of Thiyya community in Kerala, the ritual performance is a form of sacralized folk theatre and in effect becomes an embodied vessel of folk history and memory. So Theyyam performance, each Theyyam performance has a history or a memory to carry. So I'm moving to the next slide, which particularly deals with the naturalistic elements of Theyyam. So we can observe that in each Theyyam performance, the ritualistic expression of fear and respect. And these are forms a foundational element of what each Theyyam performance. So through elaborate costumes, when we look into the image, we can observe that the performer adorns with what elaborate costumes, and the performer has to perform what the performer has a kind of mesmerizing movements are there, and evocative music is there in the performance, and the performers evoke a sense of awe and reverence among the spectators, and transcending mere entertainment to invoke spiritual connections. So, according to Alex and Deborah, they extensively talked about this ecofear, nature, ecology, and indigenous communities. In indigenous communities, I call Alex and Deborah, in indigenous communities, the deep relationship between the people and their land is maintained through sacralization. Sacralization means is a process, is a cultural process that involves making something sacred or imbuing it with a sense of divinity. So, the deep relationship between people and their land is maintained through sacralization of cultural and natural materials. And the process of sacralization of a natural or cultural material is manifested as fear, awe, and or reverence, creating a nexus of nature, culture, sacred. So this love for nature of the indigenous communities can better be understood by analyzing its reflection in Theyyam. So the sustenance of Theyyam depends mainly on nature, and the sacred grooves becomes what a center of Theyyam performances, each Theyyam performances. So here in Theyyam, we can see a strong connection is established between a transcendental belief and a material ecological entity. So, so the critic Fisher, he argued that the indigenous worldview is not the one that promotes fear or hatred against nature. And according to him, there is no genetic, no inherent, no inevitable need to fear nature and thus to hate nature. So we can see that the indigenous community's existence is deeply rooted in the reverence for the ecosystem they inhabit, and the community's belief and practice system are always designed to contribute as well as to conserve its rich biodiversity. So these are the basic introduction about the theoretical perspective that I am looking into. So I'm just applying what the ecofear concepts into the performance of Theyyam so that we can get a better understanding of this performance. So we can see that the long headgear of Theyyam, or if you observe or if you watch Theyyam performances live or in YouTube, you can observe that each Theyyam performers or the performances possess a long headgear. It looks like the leaf of a banyan tree. And most of the time, this headgear is made out of areca palm. So we can directly observe a connection here with nature, right? Because they are utilizing, the performers or the ritualists are utilizing aspects from the nature. And some Theyyam performances feature headgear with lighted torches, and it may symbolize what? Sun. And there are performances that costumes incorporate tender coconut leaves and natural elements like coconut shell, rice, and flowers, etc. And traditionally, in Theyyam, makeup materials of Theyyam were sourced from nature. Though some chemical products are now used, even today, mid-ribs of coconut leaves are used as brushes for makeup. And if you observe the facial patterns, the Mugatheluthu, facial painting of Theyyam, we can see that this is also inspired from what? Nature. patterns like prakkeluthu. These are different terms used for facial patterns of Theyyam. So prakkeluthu, narikurichezhuthu, and mankannezhuthu, all these are named after different animals and birds. So prakkeluthu means pigeon. So narikurichezhuthu means is some kind of an animal like fox. And mankannezhuthu, it is derived from what? Deer, the animal deer. And we can also see the movements are also similar or resemble those of birds like peacocks and hens. If you closely observe the movements of each Theyyam performances, we can see certain resemblance with the movements of the animals and birds. In Devakut, it is considered as one of the only female Theyyam performance in North Malabar. The myth of Devakut, the Thottum, that is the song used in the performance. In Devakut, it is a flower song. And the performance of both Bindur and Paniya, these are some of the other performances associated with Devakut. So all these performances are embody nature and ecological consciousness. So Theyyam basically reflects an indigenous perspective on nature, emphasizing harmony rather than fear. So this is a small video I shot. So you can see a dancing of a peacock here. So most of the Theyyam performances with headgear resembles the movements of a peacock. You can see the feathers, how it is performing and how it is moving. And the similar thing can be observed in most of the Theyyam performances as well. Here you can see some of the pictures of the facial makeup, the facial paintings of each Theyyam performances. And if you closely observe this picture, you can identify a bird's picture in one of the maker. And they are used a midrib from the coconut leaf. They're using as a brush here. And if you observe this picture, you can see that the headgear of this particular deity, the performance that appeared in the left, you can see a kind of a leaf-like, it resembles a leaf structure. And in another picture, you can see that lighted torches are there in the headgear that resembles what? Sun. And they are using coconut leaves as their costume. Most of the costumes are actually made up of what? Coconut leaves. And one second. And here, in the next image, you can see that the performance of Devakut. Here, Devakut performance is actually resembles an island structure because it is performed in an islet in North Malabar. So usually islet is surrounded by water, just like the performance. Here, you can see that the performer is performing in a given space, and the performer is surrounded by what? The audience. So it is resembling an islet structure where the land is surrounded by water. So coming to the main part, the reverential ecofear, the concept of reverential ecofear. Reverential ecofear is a concept that captures the deep respect. What is ecofear? Reverential ecofear is a concept that captures the deep respect, awe, and fear humans have towards nature's power. We can't control nature. So we have a kind of deep respect, awe, and fear towards this natural power. So this form of fear is not simply about self-preservation, but rather an acknowledgement of nature's uncontrollable forces, often resulting in rituals, customs, and spiritual practices aimed at maintaining harmony with the environment. So here, reverential ecofear can be seen in indigenous traditions, religious beliefs, and community rituals that aim to appease nature's forces, recognizing them as divine or supernatural. Interestingly, in many cultures, we can observe that natural disasters, droughts, and pandemics are often interpreted as the result of displeased nature deities or spirits. And to restore balance, the communities often perform sacrifices, prayers, and or other rituals. For example, during the pandemic time, in Coimbatore, there emerged a belief system of Corona Devi. And they erected a Corona Devi idol. And if you Google it about this, you can read about this particular thing. So people are started afraid of the diseases, the pandemic. So they started worshipping it in order to avoid disasters. This is how rituals are emerging. This is how certain worship systems are emerging. So here, Corona Devi is a recent example. So there is basically a claim that human beings are always doing fear management in some way, especially as they feel distressed, traumatized, and thus live in a context of a culture of fear. And Fisher calling this kind of fear as a deep fear of nature. And the society, the human beings are trying to manage this fear through certain ritualistic articulations, and Theyyam is one among that ritualistic articulations. So the indigenous lifestyle and worldview are shaped by a deep respect for nature, rooted in an awareness of its power. So rather romanticizing nature, they started worshipping it in its entirety, including its fears and formidable aspects. So we can see in Theyyam performances the goddesses of war, the goddesses of illness, including Thottumkara Bagavathi, Kochave, Vasurimala, Pudhiya Bagavathi, Muchilottu Bagavathi, etc. And the goddesses Chirma or Sri Kurumba is a goddess of illness who sows the seeds of sickness on humanity. And the people are afraid of this, totally suffered from this sickness. And the sickness of the people will be cured when the people repent for their sins. And these goddesses like Chirumba, Sri Kurumba, come under the title of the mother goddesses in Theyyam performances. So the cult of mother goddesses worship evolved from the people's belief in the deity's power to bless and curse. So the people believe that the absence of mother goddess in the village or her wrath towards society would ultimately bring disaster to the land. So each land, each locality, each village have a mother goddess worship system. So they are worshipped, these mother goddesses are worshipped by people for curing illness and for a better yield in agriculture. So the people is afraid for the unpredictability of nature, in turn created a worship system in society. So they are fearing the unpredictability of nature, And they started a worship system in order to alleviate sickness, illness, everything. So often, people's fear of nature is ritualistically manifested through Theyyam performances. We can see in the pantheon of Theyyam performances, there are certain forms like Pulittheyyams. Pulittheyyam means Theyyam related to the leopard form, such as Pulikandan, Pulimarudan, and Puliyurkali, Pulimaranya Tondachan Theyyam. And there are serpent goddesses like Nagakanni. All these are related to people's fear of nature. And they acquired certain knowledge through the keen observation on nature, especially the nature cycles and other changes in nature. And all these are manifested, reflected in each Theyyam performances. So people attempt to propitiate nature, as the nature has either the power to create destruction or to ensure prosperity, to overcome their fear of nature. So people's fear is mainly concerned with the matters of diseases, reproduction, and yield in agriculture. So Theyyam is often performed to bring welfare and well-being to all the communities and societies. Often in Theyyam performances, the performers use the word like polika, that means prosperity to all, and gunam varanam, that means well-being, welfare to all. And these are evidences to this belief. People are performing Theyyam or conducting performances in order to bring welfare and well-being to their communities, to their society. So these concerns are well articulated in different folk narratives, including the ritual performances like Kodamuriyatam and Kaliyanatam. And the ritual song titled Vittu Pulipattu, that means the song of the seeds, in Kodamuriyatam, it is a ritual performance in North Malabar. It includes the description of 18 types of seeds of rice cultivation. And the ritual art like Kodamuriyatam is performed mainly to bring prosperity to each household. And the song which describes the invitation of the holy cow Kamadhenu to earth by offering flowers to it. And it is also included in Kodamuriyatam. And this song is also described in a ritual day, Puram, where the maidens take penance to worship Lord Kama for getting good husbands in future. So it is directly related to the fertility cult. One of the folklore historians, Dr. M.V. Vishnu Nambudiri, states in his volume titled Folklore Nigandu, the folklore dictionary, that in North Kerala, there is a ritual performance called Kaliyanatam. It is performed by Pulaya community to alleviate evil spirits and to bring prosperity to each household. So in Kaliyanatam, the goddess named Kaliyan and Kalichi are considered to be the goddess of evil spirits. So Kaliyanatam is performed to appease these deities to bring prosperity in agriculture and cattle rearing. So the people fear that infertility can bring disaster to their life. So they worship deities related to fertility. So as nature is the ultimate symbol of fertility and reproduction, the human beings realize the importance of worshipping it. That we can observe in the rituals like Puram and the ritual performances like Kaliyanatam and Bindur and Kodamuriyatam, etc. So if you are interested in all these, you can read about in detail. So you can identify the features related to fertility and how fertility cult is described in each rituals mentioned here. So The myths of many Theyyam performances narrate the stories of the ruling class. I'm moving to another section that deals with some of the myths of Theyyams and how it is related to nature. So, myths of many Theyyam performances narrate the stories of the ruling class, including the patriarchal system, and their efforts to suppress all the forms of resistance against their authority. For example, there are subaltern heroes in Theyyam performances. In the Theyyam Kadivannur Veeran, Mandappan, the character Mandappan is the hero. In Pottan Theyyam, one member from the Pulaya community is the hero. And in Vishakandan, Vishakanda is the hero. And Uchila is the main heroine in the myth of Muchilottu Bagavathi. And a Theyyam woman is characterized in Thottumkara Bagavathi. And Kari is a character in Pulimaranja Tondachan. And Neeli is a character in Neeliyar Bagavathi. And they were capable of bringing significant social changes with their life. So ecofear is not the concept that particularly deals with people's fear about the nature's agency, but about the agency of the subalterns. The society or the ruling class are afraid of the powerful subaltern characters who are capable of bringing social changes, and powerful women who have certain agency that can bring changes in the patriarchal system. So, the characters mentioned above ultimately became victims of the power dynamics embedded in caste and gender hierarchies within society. Here comes the story of Muchilottu Bagavathi. I hope you are interested in the myths. And Theyyam myths are really interesting. And you can see different varieties of myths. Even a single performance has different myths. So, this is one of the prominent myth related to Muchilottu Bagavathi. Muchilottu Bagavathi Theyyam is performed in Kannur and Kasaragod, and it is the central deity of the Vaniya community, a subaltern caste. And the myth of Muchilottu Bagavathi centers on a character called Uchila. She is a scholarly Brahmin woman who defeated male scholars in a debate, a Tarka Sabha, and defended her village's dignity. So she answered all the questions, including those on sexuality and labor pain, and she was falsely accused and later excommunicated and banished from her society. And she reached a place called Tikulcha, and she prepared for self-immolation. And a Vaniya, a member from a Vaniya community, helped her by providing coconut oil for the pyre. And impressed, she blessed him with prosperity before ascending as what Muchilottu Bagavathi, the Vaniya community's central deity. So this is the myth of Muchilottu Bagavathi. Here in the myth, we can see that the patriarchy uses accusations of lost virginity to strip women of their agency. So one of the Ecofear critics notes that men fear the agency they imagine women possess. So women have agency of sexual agencies there, emotional agencies there, intellectual agencies there, and political agencies there. And men fear the agency they imagine women possess. And this fear is evident in the myth of Muchilottu Bagavathi, where Uchila, a scholarly Brahmin woman, is excommunicated due to her intellect. Here, Muchilottu Bagavathi is a mother goddess She is worshipped for village prosperity, and it holds significant cultural importance across North Malabar. So an alternate myth of Muchilottu Bagavathi connects Uchila to the Dairamangalam family near Neeleshwaram in Kerala, North Malabar, where her presence brought prosperity to the land and agriculture. So people started worshipping Muchilottu Bagavathi to alleviate fears related to diseases, fertility, and prosperity. The gender dimension of this particular deity is another important aspect that we need to discuss in detail, but I'm actually dealing with the nature's connection between Theyyam performance. So I'm actually skipping that part that you can read and analyze in detail later. So we can see that nature-human integration is evident in Muchilottu Bagavathi myth, where fear of unknown diseases led people to adopt indigenous medicines. So alongside goddess worship through Theyyam, they incorporated natural elements with medicinal value into rituals. So in one of the popular myths related to Muchilottu Bagavathi, this is the myth that is existing among the Kuruchya community in Kannur. They worship Muchilottu Bagavathi because they fear unknown diseases. So they started what? Turmeric cultivation, and they use turmeric powder as powder as an offering in Muchilottu Bagavathi. So we see, because this particular worship is emerged as part of people's or the society's fear of nature, fear of diseases, unknown diseases. So they started cultivating what? Turmeric plants. And they use turmeric powder as an offering in Muchilottu Bagavathi Theyyam. E.P. Rajagopalan, a folklore critic, in one of his books, Poovum Maravum Pooravum, suggests that tribe communities develop this narrative as a response to the rise in diseases and the lack of available treatment. Here, the myth serves as a means to navigate their fear of nature, demonstrating a belief in finding solutions from nature to problems caused by nature. So these are some of the images of Muchilottu Bagavathi. And I am moving to another myth of Theyyam performance, that is Pulit Theyyam. We can clearly observe a nature culture divide in the myth of Pulit Theyyam and Karindiri Nayar. According to the myth, Lord Shiva and Parvati took the forms of leopards known as Pulikandan and Pulikarinkali, and they had children like Kandapuli, Marapuli, Kalapuli, Pulimarudan, Puliyurikali, and Puliyurikalan. So they struggled to find food in the forest, and they raided a village. They raided a village cattle shelter and consumed all the livestock there. That is a common scenario in villages near to forest, right? So the cattle owner, upon discovering the loaves, sought Karindiri Nayar's help to eliminate the leopards. So Karindiri Nayar failed and he was killed by the leopards, later ascending to divine status and joining the leopard deities. So in response, the cattle owner, a local lord, initiated the worship of these leopards through Theyyam performances. So here we can see that deforestation, that is the reality, led to the loss of habitat and resources for animals and forcing them into human settlements in search of food and shelter. So this human-induced ecological imbalance heightened fear of nature among people. So in the myth, leopards' intrusion into human areas reflects the food scarcity in the forest and reinforcing the nature culture divide with the cattle shelter symbolizing culture. So the performances of Theyyam, that means embodying leopard goddesses, is a ritualized expression of Ecofear. Some parts I'm skipping due to the time restraint. These are some of the images of Theyyams. Moving to another Theyyam performance called Puli Maranja Tondachan Theyyam. It narrates the struggles of Kari. He is a son of Virundi and Karimban. They were the tenants of Parandata local king. And despite belonging to Pulaya community, Kari was sent to study Eluthu, Poithu, and mantras. These are knowledge systems including writing, martial arts, and chanting, mantras, etc. And he became a scholar, and he was an expert of martial art kalari, and he is earning a widespread recognition. And the upper caste system feared a learned subaltern, perceiving him as a threat. And this fear manifested in the madness of the Lord of Alladam, symbolizing an attempt to suppress Kari's power. So Kari's transformation into a leopard to cure the Lord's illness can be interpreted as a deliberate strategy by the upper caste to disarm a powerful lower caste figure. So in the Thottum of Pulimaranja Tondachan Theyyam, we can see a phrase like Puli Padalathil Amarnu. That means the suppression of character called Kari by the upper class people. So transforming into a leopard requires strong determination and fearlessness, as it is considered a higher achievement. And when Kari was asked to fetch leopard milk, he chose the leopard form, symbolizing fearlessness, despite being permanently transformed. According to Fisher, he argues that a culture of fear is shaped by societal systems that attempt to control fear through fear-based means, ultimately amplifying fear rather than reducing it. So here, Kari's fate is not just an individual tragedy, but part of a broader system where fear is used as a tool of control. So the authority is afraid of Kari's emergence as a powerful figure. So they try to suppress Kari. So Pulaya community, they are performing Pulimaranja Tondachan Theyyam, is an indigenous tribe of Kerala, is deeply connected to land and agriculture. So despite Kari's mastery of kalari and his intellectual growth, he remains closely tied to nature, as shown by his choice of the leopard form. So Kari's transformation into a leopard symbolizes his return to nature, challenging a system that fears both nature and those who bridge nature and culture. And in Pulimaranja Tondachan's myth, Kari's transformation is widely known as a cure for the Lord of Alladam's illness. And before returning as a leopard, he instructs his wife. If you observe the myth, you can see that Kari instructs his wife, Vellachi, to use a broom dipped in starch water to restore his human form. But Vellachi faints out of fear, leaving Kari trapped in that leopard form. So here, starch water and the broom symbolize culture, and it reinforces the tension between nature and societal norms. So here, Vellachi's failure to restore Kari's human form symbolizes the community's estrangement from nature and society's reluctance to accept someone deeply connected to nature. So Kari's leopard form here represents nature itself, and the society's fear of Kari reflects its fear of nature. And this fear is resolved through deification, a practice commonly used by the upper caste to venerate subaltern spirits. So they started practicing or worshipping the person who was suppressed by the system. So as Kathleen Go knows, deniers, the upper caste people in common, believe that the spirits of those who died prematurely could bring misfortune through illness, madness, barrenness, and other calamities. So they started worshipping Kari as Pulimaranya Tondachin Theyyam. And the elite society seeks this worshipping system to neutralize their fear of nature and their fear of an emerging subaltern hero. So each performance of Kari's Theyyam by a Pulaya performer, in a way, symbolically reconnects the communities with nature. Though Kari couldn't change the system in his human form, he destroyed those responsible for his fate in his leopard form. So his ability to transform into a natural entity reflects here the deep connection between indigenous people and nature. So here the myth, in this myth, challenging authority is the only possible with nature's assistance. That means emphasizing its power. So the authority fears Kari not just as a scholarly subaltern, but as someone who harnesses both knowledge and nature. And Kari's transformation into a leopard is a nightmare for the system because it symbolizes the power gained through collaboration with nature. So these are some of the images of Pulimaranya Tondachin Theyyam. You can watch Theyyam performances in YouTube channel as well. So you can simply type the title and you can see some of the performances in YouTube. And another important Theyyam performance is Thottumkara Bagavathi, the performance of Thottumkara Bagavathi. Here the myth tells the story of a woman who, despite losing all her children, read Ramayana aloud without revealing her grief. So a local landlord happened to, upon hearing her, summon her to his palace. He perceived her emotional strength and he considered it as a threat to the society because the society considered women as weak, powerless. They don't have emotional superiority, and also the patriarchy never considered women as powerful. So the emotional strength of a lady or a woman is perceived here as a threat to the society. And the local landlord ordered her execution by setting fire to her head. So later her corpse was found beside a stream and she was deified as Thottumkara Bagavathi. Thodu means a local stream, a small stream. And this myth is notably absent from the Thottam part of Theyyam. This is also important. And Thottumkara Bagavathi represents the memory of a woman murdered by a feudal patriarchal system. This myth challenges the patriarchal notion of femininity as weak and delicate. So the myth does not directly align with Ecofear. It strongly relates to Stokes' concept of women's agency. Women exercise a certain agency. And the authority is afraid of women's agency as well. So the subaltern woman's willpower and intellect become a threat to patriarchal authority in public spaces. Here, Thottumkara Bagavathi is also known as Kariyantottu Bagavathi, Kariyadanchal Bagavathi, with a Thottu and Chal, that means small stream, signifying its connection to nature. And these water bodies have historically supported settlements and agriculture in Kerala. It reinforces the link between the goddess and the land. So, if you observe the facial makeup of Thottumkara Bagavathi, it is called Nagantattu Kuri. It is similar to that of Pudhiya Bagavathi, another Theyyam performance, and it is symbolic of nature. Nagantatukuri is derived from Naga, the serpent. It reflects how the artist incorporates natural elements into Theyyam performances. And if you look at the headgear of the performance, here it resembles the structure of a leaf. And they are also using the coconut leaves as their costumes. So the myths discussed above of the different Theyyam performances are clear examples of the functioning of Ecofear among the indigenous communities. So the narratives that focus too much on the victimization of these heroes and sheroes can sometimes hide how systems of power contribute to their suffering. So these stories, by shaping how society thinks, can create a mindset where the lives of marginalized people seem less important. In this case, fear is not just an emotion or feeling, it becomes an ideology. And the ritual art performances like Theyyam has importance as it is ritualistic documentation of the human nature relationship. And each performance reminds of one's existence in nature. And later, this worship system, emerged out of communities' ecofear, gave its way to ecophobia. And what is ecophobia? Ecophobia, the term is coined by Simon C. Stoke. He refers ecophobia as a deep-seated fear, hatred, or apathy toward nature. And this manifests as an attempt to dominate, control, or destroy the natural world rather than living in harmony with it. And it can stem from anxiety about environmental threats, leading people to detach from nature or exploit it from human gain or etc. If you see some of the tourism developments, we can see that they don't have a kind of ecological sense when they are committing for some developments. So templisation or the deforestation as part of the tourism development are driven by a worldview that sees nature as something to be conquered or feared rather than respected. So here templisation is a process of converting myriad forms of existence of worship places into a standardized form of a Hindu temple. So it may be a complete transformation of rituals, an architect, or a partial transformation or a change in ritual authority to Brahmanical Tantri. It's not necessarily a Brahmin. So here, templisation, the process of templisation is also happening as part of what this ecophobia. So where the appropriations of kava is also happening. And how can we observe templisation? If you observe the change in name, because the original names of cow have been replaced with the names associated with the temples. And there can be some structural transformation, because traditionally sacred groves are surrounded by trees and plants, and it has a kind of open-ended structure. But now it is replaced by a four-wall temple structure. And we can see kind of imposition of ritual restrictions. And we can see involvement of Brahmins in the ritual practices of cow. And there are introduction of different Brahmanical ritual activities like Deva Prashnam, Swarna Prashnam. So these are some of the features of the templisation process, where cow is shifted to a temple structure. So we can see all this part of templisation, or all these are actually taking part as part of what a reformation of a particular temple or a cow. And hopefully, even as the dominant system of power conceals its fears and disrupts ecological balance, ritual art forms like Theyyam in North Malabar can serve as a beacon of hope, fostering resilience while preserving a deep reverence for nature. So, as part of Ecophobia, what I told is that as part of the tourism development, there are things that are happening as part of the tourism development. Ecological places like sacred groves are now transforming into a place of tourist attraction. While they are transforming a particular sacred space into a tourist attraction, they are least bothered about the ecological preservation. They are not at all concerned about the ecological balance. They started exploiting nature without think about the consequences. So there are, if you observe, you can see different that kinds of transformations are happening around sacred groves. So what I suggest is that tourism is good, and it is good for the development of a society, but it should be a responsible kind of tourism where we respect nature. And there are performances, and Theyyams are kind of a Theyyam. The performance of Theyyam is reminding us of what ecological balance, the necessity of preserving nature, because it fosters resilience and provides a worldview that supports ecological preservation. So, thank you all. These are some of the references I used for this presentation. With this note, I conclude my presentation, and the floor is open for discussion. Thank you. Thank you all for your patient listening.
Thank you so much, Ritvik. It was really an illuminating session. I have been listening through your meets and all, though it is for me, because I am not from South. It is really tough, little bit tough to remember all the names at a sudden moment. But yeah, I will go through it. Thank you for your
Yeah,
talk.
thank you.
And now I would like to call participants if they have any queries or anything to say to our resource person. Please do that. You are free to talk to sir, so don't worry. And also on YouTube, who are watching us right now, they can also give their question on the YouTube chat. I will just take that.
So here comes one question in the chat box. Are Theyyams performed at a specific place? There are different places. As an answer to that question, there are different places where Theyyams are performing. The most important center of Theyyam performance is the sacred groves called Kav. And there are other places as part of some Tarawad, the local, the ancestral homes. They are worshipping certain deities and they are performing Theyyams. And there are different sacred spaces called Mundia. So there are different names and there are different places where Theyyam can perform. Now Theyyams are actually performing outside of its ritual spaces. Very recently in our college, our college actually organized a performance of Theyyam, and with a minimal ritualistic aspects, the performers are now performing Theyyam in outside ritual spaces as well. Even in foreign countries also, the performers are now going and performing Theyyams. Okay. Any other questions or queries?
Anyone else? Sir, how do the locations of the performances tie into the sacred ecology? One question from the YouTube.
Sorry, can you repeat the
How
question?
do the locations of the performances of this Theyyam tie into the sacred ecology?
Sorry, I didn't hear the last part.
How do the location of the performances of Theyyam tie, T-I-E, into the sacred ecology?
Okay, the location. As I mentioned earlier, the sacred groves where most of the Theyyam performances are happening. So if you closely observe nature, if you closely observe the performances, you can see that all these are reflected in the performance itself. I mentioned that Devakut performance, the performance of Devakut is happening in an islet. It is surrounded by water. So the nature is reflected in its performance aspect because the movements of Devakut is very much minimal compared to the other Theyyam performances. And it is surrounded by people, right? So it reflects an island structure. And as it is performed in a sacred grove, that means greenery. It reflects green color. So the performers are using red as a direct contrast to the nature, greener, the color green. So this is how the performances are happening and how ecology is actually influencing the performance of Theyyam and all. So it has a kind of a direct tie with each locality, each landscape. It is directly related to the performance of Theyyam. And in the chat box, I hope I answered that question. And in the chat box, are these sacred groves not associated with Brahmanical tradition? Generally, sacred groves, carve, is not associated with the Brahmanical tradition because they don't have a kind of a proper worship system. They don't have a system that follows but lighting the lamp. But now everything is changing. Now people are owning different cow worship centers, and they started worshipping different deities. Now they are inviting Brahmin priests to their cow or the sacred groves to do some ritual practices. So now it is transforming. The cow atmosphere is transforming into a temple atmosphere. So it is not directly associated with the Brahmin tradition. It has a kind of indigenous tradition of its own. And in most of the places where Theyyams are performed are owned by the upper caste. So most of the times the subaltern is forced to act according to the fancies of the upper caste. So can Theyyams be really considered a resistance art form? That's a good question. As we see that in most of the myths that I mentioned here, you cannot see in the Thottum songs as part of the Theyyam performances. These are orally transmitted. It is orally circulated. So when you look at the history, or when you look at the myth that is not mentioned in the mainstream narration, you can see that the character is suppressed or in one way or another. and the character is considered as a threat to the dominant system. In the case of Pulimaranja Tondachan Theyyam, you can see the character Kari, who is well educated, and he is considered to be a threat to the society, so he was suppressed by the system. So, as you mentioned, the performers are performing as part of the caste system, according to the fancies. You rightly mentioned, according to the fancies of the upper caste. But each performance is a reminder. It reminds us that this particular story is not the whole story. It is not full. There are stories that we need to look into. And if you try to look into those stories of the subalterns, so then you can understand that these stories are what? A kind of opposing, a kind of resistance towards the existing system. I hope I answered that question. And Theyyam is a performance which involves a gradual and magical transformation from man to God. And then how can it be performed with the minimal ritualistic aspects, and also how this transformation happens in a common man. So transvestism, or a kind of a spiritual transformation is occurring, a divine transformation is occurring in each performer. And when a performer performs particular Theyyam, and in the minimal ritualistic aspects, I think that is not exactly possible, but the performers are saying that they are observing, if a deity is fixed, then they are actually observing a kind of 3 to 4 days penance. So they are also assuming a divine qualities within them, but within minimal ritualistic aspects, that is that exactly not possible. But they are performing certain Theyyams that demands only minimal rituals out of its ritualistic aspects. This is how they are managing, because it is also a source of income for them. So now they are started performing it out of its ritualistic cloister. So they are considering it as a kind of what? An income to generate. So they are not compromising its ritual aspects full, but they are actually performing it outside ritual cloister. And how do you see the caste system as a leading force in all these Theyyam rituals? Of course, the caste system is very much prominent in each Theyyam performances. And still, I say that these performances are strictly confined to the caste rigidities. Because if a person who really wants to perform Theyyam, just like other art forms, who can't perform it, he can perform, or he or she can perform it as an art form, not as a ritual. So caste is very much there, and caste is very rigid, and it has a leading role in performing these Theyyam rituals as well. I hope I answered that question. Along with the supporting nature, whether it is supporting the feminine, if you look into the Theyyam performances, you can see that mother goddesses form an important but the majority, mother goddesses form a majority in Theyyam performances. So it in a way supports femininity. But if you look at the performance of Theyyam, most are performed by men. Only the Devakuth is actually performed by a woman, and all the other Theyyams are performed by men. And most of the Theyyam performances are include fierce body movements. But when it comes to a lady performing Devakuth, we can see only a Lasinatana kind of performance. So a lot more to discuss about the femininity or feminine or gender aspects of these Theyyam performances. That is an altogether a different topic. And how does fear aspect of reverential ecofear differ from simple terror or anxiety related to natural disaster? That is different, but somehow it is related. If we have a fear, then we will definitely call some supernatural power to save us. So, most of the fear that has a cultural and a common general background can actually induce a worship system, I think. Yes, the stories are also tell the struggles of women. Exactly. So it is directly, if that is, you can analyze these aspects as part of the ecofeminist discussions going on. I hope I answered all the questions. And how old may Theyyams be, or how long has it been going on, and has the costumes changed over the period of time? Only small changes are happening related to the costumes, and we can't exactly trace the exact origin of Theyyam performances, and where it begins and how it begins. There are myths related to the origin of Theyyam that you can actually, if you Google it, you can read elaborately on that. And, maybe in 13th or 14th century, or even before that, performances similar to Theyyam were there, I think. So I don't know exactly where, how, and where and when it originated. So,
Anyone else? Okay, okay,
Hi,
yeah,
can you
Madhuri,
hear
hello.
me?
please.
Hi, so I wanted to take a moment to thank Sir because I have used this particular essay that you have published in Eco Consciousness and Ecology journal by Susan Deborah Ma'am and Raisin Alexa. I have used that as a resource for my dissertation,
Okay,
and
okay.
it was quite nice. Like listening you talk about it, like I could connect all the thoughts, how you contributed to ecophobia by talking about reverential ecofear.
Yeah,
That's quite different, quite interesting. Like, it's not, you didn't make it very complicated, but in very simple terms you made that difference between that phobic attitude and the reverential fear, which makes Theyyam an altogether an experience rather than a performance or a ritual. So it was such a pleasant experience listening to you talk, and I wanted to thank you for that too,
yeah.
for the essay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. So I think today's lecture was really great, and the discussion, actually, I enjoyed the discussion. Uh, so with your permission, sir, I am coming to the vote of thanks,
Okay.
and because we are already, I mean, not running out of time, but it is the time. On behalf of CSRF, with immense gratitude that I want to express our sincere thanks to Dr. Ritvik Sankar A for his insightful and captivating presentation on reverential ecofear in Theyyam, the sacred ecology of North Malabar's ritual performance. His profound understanding of Theyyam, coupled with his deep engagement with the cultural and ecological nuisance of North Malabar, has truly enriched our understanding of this unique ritual performance. His presentation was not just an academic discourse, it was a journey into the heart of a vibrant tradition expertly conveyed with clarity and passion. We are truly honored to have had Dr. Shankar share his expertise with us. His research, particularly his work on this gender, cultural, and performance dimension of Debaku, is a testament to his dedication to preserving and understanding marginalized ritual art forms. Thank you, sir, for your time, your knowledge, and your dedication. And now I would love to thank with all sincerity Dr. Kalani Velat ma'am and Anand Haridas sir for being a truly supportive of all our ventures. And I would also like to express my thanks to all the attendees who contributed to the success of this event. Until we meet again, continue to explore with Velat. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Sir, you can just end the session for all.
Okay. Yeah, I'm ending the session. Thank you all.
Thank you.